Bully tries to drag new black student out of class. He didn't know she was an incredible boxer. "You don't belong here, girl," yelled Tyler Morrison, grabbing Jasmine Williams' arm hard enough to leave marks. "This class is for people like us." The advanced chemistry classroom at Lincoln High School fell silent. 28 students watched in shock as the school's biggest bully tried to literally drag the new student out of the room. Jasmine was only 17 and on her third day at this predominantly white school in suburban Connecticut. "Let go of my arm," she said, her voice calm like still water before a storm. Tyler laughed loudly, his friends Jake and Connor joining in. "Or what? Are you going to cry to mommy?" He squeezed harder, trying to force her up from her desk. "You were better off at that ghetto school you came from." The chemistry lab, with its marble countertops and expensive equipment, seemed like a completely different world from the simple gym where Jasmine spent every afternoon training. Lincoln High was known for producing the region's intellectual elite, and Jasmine had earned a full scholarship through her exceptional grades in math and science. What Tyler didn't know was that Jasmine Williams had spent the last 8 years training at the East Side Boxing Club, where she had learned that true strength comes not from muscles, but from discipline. His calloused fists, hidden under his school sweater, told stories of 1,000 rounds of training and dozens of victories in youth competitions. At age 12, when her mother enrolled her in the boxing club to burn off some energy, Jasmine discovered something much bigger than a sport. She discovered a family. Coach Rodriguez, a former professional boxer from Puerto Rico, had become more than a mentor. He was the father she never had. "Jasmine," he always said, "in the ring you learn 2 things, how to throw a punch and when not to throw one. The second is more important than the first." Ms. Henderson, a 50-year-old woman clearly uncomfortable with the situation, stammered, "Tyler, please go back to your seat." "No," Tyler interrupted, pulling Jasmine closer. "First she's going to learn where she belongs." Tyler Morrison wasn't just your average bully. At 18, he was the son of the school board president and the grandson of one of the school's founders. His last name was engraved on bronze plaques throughout the school, and he grew up believing that certain things were his birthright. Jasmine looked around the room. Some classmates lowered their eyes, others took out their cell phones to film, but no one moved to help. It was exactly as her coach, Mr. Rodriguez, had predicted. "Jasmine, one day you'll face a fight that isn't in the ring. When that moment comes, remember who you are." In the front row, a blonde girl whispered to her friend, "She's like a physical education major or something, right?" The mean laughter echoed softly, but Jasmine heard every word. For a moment, she let Tyler think he was winning. She allowed him to pull her slightly, to taste the false victory. But her eyes showed no fear. They showed the calculated patience of a predator choosing the exact moment to strike. Jake, Tyler's best friend, was filming everything with his cell phone. "Man, this is going to go viral," he laughed. "The new girl learning the rules of the house." Connor, on the other side of the room, made a comment that made half the class laugh nervously. "At least now she knows how things work around here." Jasmine took a deep breath, remembering Mr. Rodriguez's teachings on emotional control. In boxing, whoever loses their head first loses the fight. And she never lost. "Last chance," she muttered, so low that only Tyler could hear. He laughed again, increasing his strength. "Don't you get it yet? I'm the boss here and—" That's when something unexpected happened. In a movement so fast that most of those present could barely follow, Jasmine stood up, twisted her wrist, broke Tyler's grip, and sent him reeling backward. His eyes now shone with a confidence that made the silence in the room even heavier. "Next time you touch me without permission," she said, calmly adjusting her backpack, "you'll find out exactly what a state junior boxing champion can do when she loses her patience." Tyler stood still, rubbing his sore wrist, unable to understand how such a seemingly fragile girl had broken his grip so easily. Around the room, phones were discreetly tucked away and expressions of surprise spread among the classmates. Ms. Henderson blinked several times, processing what she had just witnessed. In her 20-year career, she had never seen a student disarm Tyler Morrison so easily and elegantly. What no one in that room knew was that Jasmine Williams wasn't just a new student trying to fit in. She was a force of nature disguised as an ordinary teenager, carrying in her hands the discipline of years of training and in her heart the determination of someone who had fought for every opportunity in life. Tyler Morrison had just awakened something he was never prepared to face. And as he massaged his sore wrist, He had no idea that this was only the first round of a fight that would forever change the dynamics of that school. If you're enjoying this story of overcoming adversity and justice, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what you've just seen was only the first move in a match where the rules were about to be completely rewritten. News of what happened in chemistry class spread through Lincoln High like wildfire. In less than 2 hours, half the school knew that the new scholarship student had attacked Tyler Morrison. The version of events, of course, changed depending on who was telling the story. "She came here thinking she's all that," whispered Madison Cooper, the mayor's daughter, to her clique at the cafeteria table. "Typical aggressive behavior. I bet she came from one of those troubled schools." Jasmine sat alone in the corner of the cafeteria, pretending not to hear the comments flying around her. Her mother, a nurse who worked double shifts to pay for the expenses that the scholarship didn't cover, always said, "Jasmine, when you enter places where people don't want you, your every move will be judged 10 times more than everyone else's." She had never fully understood those words until now. Tyler appeared in the cafeteria with his wrist dramatically bandaged, surrounded by Jake, Connor, and 3 other boys from the lacrosse team. He gestured excitedly, clearly recounting his version of events to anyone who would listen. "Did you guys see how she attacked me out of nowhere?" Tyler spoke loudly enough for half the cafeteria to hear. "Typical violent behavior. My dad always said people like that shouldn't be here." Jake was recording everything on his phone, apparently planning some kind of social media campaign. "Man, this will show everyone what kind of people they're bringing here now," he laughed. What Tyler didn't know was that Jasmine Williams had grown up as the only black child in 3 different schools. Her mother, determined to give her daughter the best educational opportunities, always managed to get her transferred to better schools, even if it meant facing miles of daily commuting and hostile environments. At 12, when she started at the East Side Boxing Club, Jasmine wasn't just looking for a sport. She was looking for a place where she could vent the anger of being constantly questioned, underestimated, and treated like an outsider in every academic setting she had ever attended. "Jasmine," Mr. Rodriguez had said on her first day of practice, "boxing isn't about hitting other people. It's about controlling your strength when everyone expects you to lose control." During recess, Principal Patricia Walsh called Jasmine in for a talk. The principal's office, decorated with photos of former students who had become senators and CEOs, seemed designed to intimidate. "Jasmine, I understand that you may be feeling out of place here," Principal Walsh began, her words carefully chosen. "But physical violence is not how we resolve conflicts at Lincoln High." "Physical violence," Jasmine repeated, keeping her voice calm. "I defended myself from someone who was trying to drag me out of the classroom." "Yes, well, Tyler is saying that you attacked him without provocation," the principal continued, leafing through a report. "And considering that you come from a different background, it might be best if we looked for a school that's a better fit for you." Jasmine felt the blood boil, but her voice remained controlled. "My profile is that of a student with a 9.7 GPA in math and science, Ms. Walsh. What part of that doesn't fit this school?" The principal paused, clearly not expecting such an articulate response. "Well, of course your grades are impressive. But behavioral issues. Were the security cameras in the chemistry room checked?" Jasmine interrupted politely. "The cameras?" Mrs. Walsh looked surprised by the question. "Yes. I'm sure they'll show exactly who initiated physical contact and who was just defending herself." Meanwhile, Tyler had ramped up his campaign. During gym class, he and his friends spread the word to the entire lacrosse team that Jasmine was dangerous and aggressive. In the locker room, Connor suggested they should do something before she hurt someone. "My dad knows everyone important in this town," Tyler boasted. "One phone call and she's back in whatever hole she came from." What Tyler didn't realize was that his own words were being carefully documented. Emma Rodriguez, Jasmine's cousin and the only Latina in the class, had begun discreetly recording the prejudiced conversations that took place when they thought no one different was listening. That afternoon, Jasmine arrived at the boxing club with a determination that Mr. Rodriguez recognized immediately. "Tough day?" he asked, adjusting her training gloves. "They think they know my story," she replied, beginning to punch the heavy bag with a precision that showed years of discipline. "They think they know who I am." "And who are you?" asked the coach. Jasmine paused for a moment, looking down at her bandaged hands. "I'm still figuring that out. But I know who I'm not. I'm not the victim they expect me to be." Mr. Rodriguez smiled. He had trained hundreds of young people over the years, but few had the rare combination of technical talent and mental strength he saw in Jasmine. Then show them who you really are. But do it the smart way. The next morning, Tyler escalated the situation even further. He and his friends arrived at school early and scattered printouts of articles about violence in schools, strategically placed in hallways where teachers and staff would find them. The fake papers talked about problem students and behavioral warning signs. Each new humiliation, each malicious whisper, each look of contempt only fueled something inside Jasmine that her oppressors couldn't see. A silent force was growing, nourished by the very injustice they tried to impose on her. What those privileged young people didn't know was that every act of prejudice was writing their own sentence of defeat. They saw a quiet girl who bowed her head in the face of insults and thought they had broken her spirit, but those who truly know strength know that it grows precisely in silence, like a storm forming on the horizon. The next morning, Jasmine arrived at school with a different determination. She was no longer the girl who tried to blend in and go unnoticed. It was time to play the game by the rules she knew: strategy, patience, and surgical precision. During English class, Emma Rodriguez discreetly slipped a note to Jasmine's desk. "I need to talk to you at lunch. It's important," it read in small letters. Emma was different from the rest of Lincoln High. The daughter of Salvadoran immigrants, she had earned her spot through a diversity program that the school maintained more for appearances than out of any real conviction. As Mr. Rodriguez's cousin, she knew Jasmine's story very well. "Do you have any idea what's going on?" Emma asked when they met in the empty library. "Tyler and his friends are spreading rumors that you have a history of violence. They said you were expelled from 3 schools. Jasmine didn't seem surprised. "And people are believing it." "Most of them. But I've been recording everything." Emma pulled out her phone and showed her a series of videos. Tyler talking about how people like you shouldn't be here. Connor suggesting they should do something before you really hurt someone. Jasmine smiled for the first time in days. "My cousin always said you were smart," Emma said. "He also told me you're not exactly a helpless victim." Meanwhile, Tyler had arranged a meeting with his father, Robert Morrison, president of the school board. The luxurious downtown office was adorned with Harvard diplomas and photos of important politicians. "Dad, you need to do something about that girl," Tyler insisted, his wrist still dramatically bandaged. "She's dangerous. She attacked me for no reason." Robert Morrison was a man accustomed to solving problems with influence and money. "Son, you can't just deal with a troubled scholarship student. Since when do you need my help to handle a school situation?" "She's not like the others," Tyler muttered, involuntarily reliving the moment when Jasmine broke his grip with an ease that still haunted him. "There's something different about her." "Different how?" Robert raised an eyebrow. "She's not afraid. And that's disturbing." That afternoon, Jasmine met Emma in the school parking lot. "I got more material," Emma said, showing her new recordings. Madison Cooper talking about how people like that always cause trouble. Jake planning a social media campaign to show her true colors. "They have no idea what they're creating," Jasmine said calmly, watching the videos. "Every prejudiced word that comes out of their mouths is building their own judgment." Emma was intrigued by Jasmine's calmness. "Do you have a plan?" "My coach always says that in boxing, you study your opponent before you step into the ring. You find out their weaknesses, their patterns, their reflexes." Jasmine put Emma's phone away carefully. "Tyler Morrison and his friends are predictable. Privileged, arrogant, and dumb enough to document their own ignorance." At the boxing club that night, Mr. Rodriguez noticed a change in Jasmine's demeanor. "You seem different tonight." "I am different," she replied, adjusting her gloves. "I'm tired of being treated like an outsider in a place where I belong." "And what's the plan?" Jasmine began working the heavy bag with a precision that showed years of discipline. "I'm going to give them exactly what they want, a demonstration of what it means to underestimate someone." "Remember," Mr. Rodriguez said, watching his students' flawless technique, "the best fight is the one you win before you even throw the first punch." The next morning, Principal Walsh summoned Jasmine to another meeting. "Jasmine, we've received additional concerns about your behavior. Some parents have called expressing unease about your presence at school." "Parents like Robert Morrison?" Jasmine asked directly. The principal paused, clearly not expecting Jasmine to connect the dots so quickly. Well, Mr. Morrison is a respected member of the school community. And Tyler is his son, Jasmine finished. The same person who tried to drag me out of the classroom in front of 28 witnesses. The versions of what happened are conflicting. Jasmine leaned forward. Ms. Walsh, did you check the security cameras as I suggested? Another awkward silence. Unfortunately, the cameras in the chemistry lab were undergoing maintenance that day. How convenient, Jasmine said, her voice laden with sarcasm that made the principal squirm in her chair. During lunch, Tyler showed up in the cafeteria with a new version of events. Guys, I found out more about her story, he announced loudly enough for half the cafeteria to hear. My dad did some digging. She has a violent history. That's why she ended up here. Jake filmed everything, clearly preparing the next post in the smear campaign. Man, this will prove to everyone what kind of people they're bringing here. What Tyler didn't know was that every word was being carefully captured by Emma, who had strategically positioned herself 2 tables behind him. And Jasmine, sitting quietly in the corner of the cafeteria, watched everything with the patience of a hunter waiting for the perfect moment to strike. That afternoon, something changed in Jasmine's behavior. She began to walk through the halls of Lincoln High not like someone trying to hide, but like someone who belonged there. Her steps were measured, her posture straight, and her eyes carried a confidence that made some students stop to watch. Just when everyone thought they had broken her spirit, something unexpected began to take shape, not just in the school environment, but mainly in the determined look that now shone with an intensity that made Tyler Morrison realize, for the first time, that he might have seriously underestimated who he was dealing with. On Friday morning, Jasmine arrived at school carrying more than her usual books. Emma found her in the hallway, her eyes shining with anticipation. Are you sure about this? She whispered. Absolutely, Jasmine replied, her voice laden with a determination that made Emma smile. Today they're going to find out what it means to underestimate someone. During the first class, Tyler stepped up his campaign. Guys, my dad got more information about her, he announced to the history class. Apparently, she was expelled from 2 schools for assault. That's why she ended up here. Jake laughed loudly, filming everything for another post on social media. Man, that explains everything. Typical violent behavior. Madison Cooper, sitting in the front row, added her dose of venom. Honestly, I don't know why they let people like that study here. My dad always said diversity programs just cause trouble. What none of them noticed was Emma discreetly positioned at the back of the room, recording every prejudiced word that came out of their privileged mouths. During the break, Jasmine executed the first part of her plan. She marched straight to Principal Walsh's office, carrying a folder that made the woman raise her eyebrows. Ms. Walsh, I need to show you something important, Jasmine said, connecting Emma's cell phone to the principal's computer. These are recordings from the last 3 days. The principal watched in growing silence as the screen showed Tyler spreading lies about Jasmine's violent history. Jake planning a social media campaign to expose her true character. Madison making openly racist comments about people like her. My God, Mrs. Walsh murmured, her face paltering with each new recording. There's more, Jasmine said calmly, moving on to the next video. The screen showed Connor suggesting that we should do something before she hurts someone real. Tyler bragging that 1 call from my dad and she's back in whatever hole she came from. The principal paused the video, her hands shaking slightly. Jasmine, I didn't know that. You didn't know because you didn't want to look into it, Jasmine interrupted politely. When I suggested checking the security cameras, you said they were down for maintenance. When I asked for an impartial investigation, you chose to believe the word of the board president's son. Meanwhile, Tyler and his friends celebrated in the cafeteria, completely oblivious to the storm brewing. Man, by the end of the week she'll be out of here, Tyler laughed, his wrist still dramatically bandaged. My dad already called some board members, he boasted. He said she's a risk to the safety of other students. That's when the principal's voice echoed through the school's PA system. Tyler Morrison, Jake Stevens, Connor Blake, and Madison Cooper, report to the principal's office immediately. Tyler frowned. What the hell is this? 15 minutes later, the 4 entered the principal's office to find a scene that made their confident smiles disappear instantly. Mrs. Walsh sat behind her desk, flanked by 2 members of the school board and the school resource officer. On the computer screen, paused, was Tyler's face spreading lies about Jasmine. "Sit down," the principal said, her voice icy. Tyler tried to maintain his composure. "Ms. Walsh, if this is about that girl." "This is about 3 days of documented harassment, a smear campaign, and openly discriminatory language," she interrupted, pressing play. For the next 15 minutes, they watched in growing horror as their own prejudiced voices were played back with crystal clarity. Jake, who had spent days filming others, was now being filmed without his knowledge. Madison, accustomed to making mean comments among friends, saw her most poisonous words exposed to school officials. "This is illegal," stammered Connor. "They can't record us without permission." "Actually," said the school officer calmly, "Connecticut is a one-consent state. Anyone can record conversations they're participating in." Tyler, finally grasping the extent of the disaster, tried one last card. "My dad is going to hear about this." "You can't." "Your father has already been informed," said Mrs. Walsh. "And after reviewing these recordings, the school board has made a unanimous decision." The door opened and Jasmine walked in, carrying herself with the quiet dignity of someone who had just proven her point. She didn't smile, didn't show any triumph. She just sat down calmly as justice finally took its course. "Tyler Morrison, you are suspended for 2 weeks and will have a permanent disciplinary record. Jake Stevens and Connor Blake, 1 week suspension each. Madison Cooper, 3 days." Tyler exploded. "This is ridiculous. She attacked us first." "No," Ms. Walsh said firmly. "The recordings clearly show that you initiated physical contact, perpetuated a campaign of harassment, and used discriminatory language." Jasmine Williams defended herself against an assault. Jasmine finally spoke, her calm voice cutting through Tyler's anger and desperation. "You thought you knew my story. You thought you knew who I was." She stood up, looking each of them directly in the eye. "I am Jasmine Williams, state junior boxing champion, a student with a 9.7 GPA, and someone who will never allow herself to be treated as inferior by people who confuse privilege with superiority." Tyler, his face red with humiliation, tried once more. "You don't understand how things work around here." "I understand perfectly," Jasmine interrupted him. "They work through mutual respect, academic merit, and human dignity. Things you clearly never learned, despite all the opportunities you've had." As the 4 left the room in embarrassed silence, the reality of the situation began to sink in. Their own words, their own prejudiced attitudes, their own discriminatory actions had become the ropes that now publicly hanged them. At the end of that day, as Jasmine walked through the halls of Lincoln High, something had fundamentally changed in the environment. Not just in the way the other students looked at her, with newfound respect, but in the very atmosphere of the school, as if a lesson in justice had finally been learned by everyone present. 6 months later, Jasmine Williams walked through the halls of Lincoln High as student council president, elected by an overwhelming margin. Her campaign had been simple: mutual respect, equal opportunity. And it worked like a tsunami that swept away decades of elitism at the school. Tyler Morrison never returned to Lincoln High. After his suspension, his parents transferred him to a military school in another state, where strict discipline was promised as a solution to his problematic behavior. Recordings of his prejudiced comments had been leaked on social media, making him a celebrity for all the wrong reasons. Jake Stevens lost his scholarship to Stanford when the admissions committee saw videos of him planning smear campaigns. Connor Blake was rejected by 3 universities that had already accepted his application. Madison Cooper had to perform mandatory community service at civil rights organizations. Ironic, isn't it? Emma Rodriguez commented over lunch, watching Jasmine review proposals for the school's new mentoring program. "They tried to kick you out, and they ended up getting kicked out of their own opportunities." Jasmine smiled, but without malice. "I didn't root for them to fall, Emma. I just showed them who they really were. The consequences were their choice, not mine." The transformation at Lincoln High went beyond superficial changes. Principal Walsh implemented a comprehensive diversity and inclusion program. Robert Morrison was removed from the school board after an investigation revealed that he had pressured staff to deal with minority students. During the graduation ceremony, Jasmine was chosen as the valedictorian. "A year ago, someone told me I didn't belong here," she began, her voice echoing through the packed auditorium. Today, I look at you and I see that he was right. I don't belong to this school's past. I belong to her future. The audience erupted in applause. Former classmates who had witnessed her initial humiliation now rose to their feet in ovation. I've learned that true strength doesn't come from the muscles we use to hurt others, but from the discipline we use to defend ourselves. And it definitely doesn't come from the privilege we inherit, but from the dignity we earn. Months later, when Tyler tried to return for a visit to his old school, he discovered that no one remembered him fondly. The hallways that once echoed his name with fear now whispered stories about the girl who turned prejudice into progress. Jasmine, meanwhile, had accepted a full scholarship to Harvard, where she planned to study law with a focus on social justice. Her graduation speech had gone viral, inspiring young people in schools across the country. On her last day of school, she walked past the chemistry classroom where it had all begun. The truth is that Tyler Morrison tried to destroy Jasmine Williams, but ended up creating an unstoppable force that transformed an entire institution. Jasmine proved that inherited privilege will never beat earned dignity, that important last names don't trump important attitudes, and that the true elite are not defined by money or connections, but by the ability to turn injustice into inspiration. She learned that the best revenge is not to stoop to the level of those who hurt you, it's to rise so high that they realize the gulf that always existed between their character and yours. If this story of overcoming adversity touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that sometimes the best blow you can deal to someone who tries to bring you down is simply to rise higher than they can ever reach.